We finally got our quorum together so we can have this meeting. And this is the meeting of November the 29th and of the Capital Outlay Committee. Why don't we start with the approval of the minutes from November the 8th?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Okay, so that's just taking care of that. We had discussed some open issues and wanting to find out, from a financial standpoint, the condition of West Harwich School and the related expenses as it stands today.
I actually have that material. Evan was able to get some of that information. Just as the chairman's passing that around, just the two elements, well, probably three elements that are in here. The first is that they had a list of things that needed to be done, so we did tell them what the work list was, how we were going to approach doing it. We haven't heard anything back that they object to that, so he thought that Paul Silva is the insurance rep on this issue. And because it is a vacant building, we have separate vacant building coverage. So the second part of it is based on a depreciation basis, it's $170,000 is what they have that building valued at. The premium and the tax is just shy of $2,000, and they charge the inspection fee of $175 once every 3 years. And then just as a notation that there's a debris removal coverage that is limited to $25,000.
I don't understand what the 25,000 is for.
If the building were to be demolished
Oh,
and there was a pile of rubble,
Okay.
that would
that's
be
only pay 25,000.
only pay $25,000.
Okay. But if the shingles blow off and the siding blows off, DPW has to police it, pick it up.
Yes.
Okay, I don't understand the first paragraph. I did receive a response to the recommendations, okay. I sent them off to the insurance company. They have not responded, which is a good thing.
So once every 3 years, they do an inspection, and when they did the inspection this year, they came back that you have to do certain things to kind of keep the building weather tight and so on. So Sean Libby generated a response to that to do the work. About $20,000 is what he has in here. We have $20,000 in the budget to do the work. So he will, I'm trying to remember the different, it was something on the porch, and I think secure the windows. It was kind of work of that nature, just to secure the building. It wasn't to bring the building back up to any kind of standard. It was just to kind of keep the building secure, so it would not continue to get damaged or vandalized.
So we have a sunk
That sunk cost would be about $20,000 to
of
continue to
20K.
maintain
We've got 2,000
that for the coverage.
for the coverage. Anything else on it?
No.
So it's 22,000, and it's a year, right?
And the 2,000 is per year for however long that's been vacant.
How about the 20?
That would be a one-time. Well, once every 3 years, they'll come out and do an inspection again. It won't get any better, I'm
Okay.
sure.
Any questions?
I just have a question. I just watched a number of the selectmen's meetings. Nobody seems to have any use for that building. They seem to want to keep the building, but I can't, why do they want to keep it, other than to keep it? And if that's the case, do we spend money on it, or do we spend money on some of the people who want to eat in town?
It's a good question.
Yeah, it is a good question. You know, I think that the selectmen are a little bit in a hard place, because I think there are some members of the board that would love to have it demolished, but there's a contingent in the West Harwich area that has the feeling that that building has historic significance and is a crucial part of the historic structure of that area. I think this time around, Selectman Howell, I'll give him credit for it, said that if we're going to do something with the building, we need to have a viable entity that's willing to take that challenge on, similar to the South Harwich Meeting House, that there was a citizens group that got together. I would just, the South Harwich Meeting House is it's a good feel-good story, but it's probably about $800,000 went into improvements of that building. and 600,000 of it was CPC funds, and 200,000 of it, again, these are just rough numbers, were fundraised money. And I was asked, and I did, well, I volunteer when I feel like I need to volunteer. So I did reach out to some members in the West Harwich community and have asked them, would they already formed a nonprofit, believe it or not, to do some work in that area. And I did talk to a couple of people over there. Actually, Charlene and I talked to them on one occasion. I've talked to 3 people, and I said, look, I think the selectmen would like to do a license agreement similar to what was done with South Harwich Meeting House, but they need to have a viable entity to kind of turn this over to. So we're in the process of trying to see if a viable entity is out there. Certainly, I've been on the books for 5 years, and really, I think, prompted by this committee to make a decision one way or another, do something with it or demo it. So I've had it on the schedule for demoing it with the idea that we could get some movement on it. But that's kind of where we are now, is the West Harwich group is in the process of, apparently when they formed originally, they formed just around that boathouse idea. So they didn't form as a general enough nonprofit to do other things. So they're revamping their nonprofit status, and they have an interest in doing it. And there may be some different leadership besides the Urbanos. I think the Urbanos had a certain vision and wanted to accomplish something that vision didn't come to reality.
What would be the process or the procedure that we sold the building at less than market value
Mm-hmm.
to get it off our books and give it to somebody else? I mean, is there,
Well, I think there's 2 concepts that we could use. One concept is the South Harwich Meeting House. That group actually pays all the insurance, and they're really responsible for that building. So the liability for the town has been essentially transferred onto a private non-for-profit. So that would be one avenue, to have them provide their own insurance or compensate us for the insurance coverage, so it becomes more revenue neutral for the town and not a loss. The other example is we were successful, administration was successful in the former Harbor Masters storage facility over on Bank Street, where there is a town meeting vote that authorizes the demolition and sale of that property. So we're just waiting for the harbor work to be finished and that facility to be vacated, and then we will have a RFP to do that. And then it's just the cost to put the RFP together, which is really internal costs. And then if we did, in this case, it may be more advantageous to demo the building and make it more valuable than selling it with the existing building. I think I've jokingly said, only jokingly a little bit, there's more raccoons than there are people in that building. So it's not very habitable for operation. So anyone that was going to acquire that would take some work to renovate it. But those are really the 2 avenues, I think, that are available.
So, Chris, in your own mind, do you think there should be a drop dead date that by, let's say, 2020, it's going to be an empty lot, and we're not going to own it?
Well, I deal with politicians all the time, and you don't always get drop dead dates that get adhered to. So I mean, it's really part of the political process. You know, I think one of the recommendations that I've made to the selectmen is it may have some value to keeping the parcel, because finding, and we have been finding sites to put pump stations on in East Harwich. And suffice to say, on behalf of the residents of the community, I've been trying to find as much public land to put those pump stations on as opposed to paying people for those lands. So if that site is at all viable as a pump station site, you know, that doesn't mean we couldn't demo the building and lose the building and then have the site stay a site there's really little carrying cost. I don't even think you list on your insurance, certificates, when you have vacant land. Vacant land has no inherent risk value to it because it's vacant land, it's just fields. But a drop dead date, I would kind of, that's not my call. I mean, certainly in the 5 years I've been here, I've tried to get, by putting it on the capital plan, trying to have a discussion. We've definitely had discussions on it, but getting to a final point, that's really a selectman's call, a policy call, and not necessarily an administrative call.
I just fear that we keep kicking this down the road, and 5 years from now, we'll be saying, geez, in 2018, if we had gotten rid of that asset then, we would have saved ourselves a $500,000. And I think we have a tendency, I have a tendency, if I can postpone something, I'll do it. But often when I do that, I regret that decision.
Right.
Guys from Jersey. Let me ask.
Everybody agrees with you.
We've been talking about these, looking at the assets of the town and trying to evaluate them. And maybe we can get more support and maybe make it a, other than looking at the capital plan and getting the capital requests, we should have maybe an ongoing project. And I know we've talked about it, but getting the, which buildings are in the condition that the school is in and which buildings have no value. I don't want to say no value,
Yep.
because they have value.
Somebody had called them an orphan at one point.
Yeah.
It's not a bad description. There's no purpose for the building, but the building still stays as a town inventory.
Yeah, but an orphan a lot means you've given up on it, and or somebody died and stuff, Maybe the raccoons have, but what I'd like to do is and maybe work with, what's his name? Sean, to come up with a list and make it an ongoing working, for this committee, a working committee agenda item that we try to support, try to get more information. And I'm sure there are buildings that are in, or properties that are in that asset column, orphan column, or whatever it's called.
There's not too many anymore, to be perfectly honest. I mean, we have made progress. It's interesting in my...
Well, how do, if there isn't, okay?
Yeah.
How do we move on this one? Because this one's always been on the top of the list.
Right.
And has been highlighted. And I'm agreeing with our vice chairman that we're just kicking the can down the road. And how does this committee influence the political nature of the problem?
I think one thing that's kind of interesting, in my last community, they had, I think it was 6 buildings that were deemed to no longer be in need of operation because there was consolidation in buildings. And the role there was a little bit different because I was the town manager. But I actually asked for the town council, and the council was the legislative body, if you would, as well as the executive people that I was working with, to just grant me the authority to dispose of them or do something with. And out of those 6 buildings, I wound up finding a reuse for 5 of them before I left. So, because I wasn't as tied into the politics
Yeah, that's my,
of what needed to be done, that I thought that worked pretty well. But here, just thinking about it, South Harwich Meeting House was a work in process when we started. Now that's done, and we no longer have a builder's agreement on that. That is actually now a license agreement with a nonprofit group to do. We have town meeting action for the old harbor master's office, and that will be resolved because that's already been voted by town meeting. And the the Harwich Junior Theater that was a building that has renovations that has a lease. Brooks Academy. So really the 2 that are still outstanding as kind of problematic probably would be Brooks needs to have a fair amount of work done to it, the Brooks Academy, the one Dave Spitz has put forward, and then the West Harvard School. But I think progress has been made. Well, Angelo was on the board at the time. I think a lot of good progress was made in some of those to continue to move that along. We're down to 2 left.
I think you're missing a building, middle school. It's there, and everybody talks about it, but I don't think it has been voted forever, nor has anybody ever looked at the, no, I'm sorry. Yeah, the building's there, but it hasn't been voted to be there forever, and nobody's really looked at the costs. And nobody's really looked at the costs involved. And I think unless we start looking at the cost involved of keeping buildings there and maintaining them, you know, people are gonna say, well, all right, put $25,000, $30,000 in, forgetting that there's several hundred needed to keep it in the way it's going.
Well, I think that the discussion could go on all night.
I
Okay,
understand.
no, I want to continue it as an action item when we start to meet in the spring. Okay, fair? I think basically, there's minimal amount of work to the plan. Just because you weren't here last year. This beginning April, May, or March, April, and then we start the process in September, we can make them working items that we can really get more information, attend some meetings, you know, Board of Selectmen meetings, and give them an update of where we stand.
My concern comes from being concerned of what's going on with the taxes and having a lot of people who used to live in houses that didn't pay a lot of taxes, and are starting to pay a lot of taxes, being very uncomfortable and saying things like they have to leave town, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I think we have to be careful with what we do with our taxes and very transparent, because, you know, there are buildings that we each year come and ask for money and whatnot to do things, and we give it to them, but nobody knows that that particular operation was losing X number of dollars, and they could increase their fees, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I think we've got to give the residents at town meeting the ability to vote on it, but to understand what's going on. You know, so I'll be quiet.
No, it's not an issue, and you bring it up. I know that I personally, this week, had a conversation with a neighbor and did not realize the hardships that some of my neighbors have, because I can't appreciate it, because I'm not going through it right now. And not only the taxes, wastewater, sewage, car payment, you know, everything that I don't assume that's gonna, it's eye-awakening kind of thing, that when somebody's on a really fixed income, you know, $10 or $5 really makes a difference, you know. So I think I'd like to use it as Chris would say, a learning experience, and work on it, and maybe get a subcommittee or whatever going in the spring, and identifying, literally, if we took the 3 buildings, the high school, Brooks Academy, and this, anything else? Those are the 3.
Well, I disagree a little bit with Angela, only I didn't specifically say the middle school, because the middle school for the longest time, I mean, I was asked to put together a plan to retain it, so came up with the concept of the cultural center, and they only approved 2 years. But now the board has voted to expand that to 5 years on top of 1 year. So there's 6 years in which that building, by board policy and board vote, is contemplated to be the cultural center.
Can the board do that, or does it have to go to town meeting? Because if they...
Yeah, no, it's an executive function for the board to vote the reuse of the building. The town meeting could not fund the funding for it, that would be a different, but town meeting did vote to create the revolving fund to do it. So town meeting has been on record as supporting a concept of cultural center. But the only reason why I didn't mention that is, to me, it's a 5-year or 6-year time window that we have for that building.
I'm surprised because the first time through in that, I think we were told by legal groups that it had to go to town meeting.
Any funding that we want to do on the building definitely needs to go to town meeting. And that's been funded every year for the 5 years to do the $125,000 to continue to subsidize operation of that building. But last year, the year before, we created a fund specifically to take the revenue generated by the sale, the rentals, to pump back into the building.
Yeah, well, that's fine, but first you have to figure out what the building costs, and then find out how much the rentals cover that. And I guess pretty well that they don't come close to covering it.
I thought that you wanted to
did ask
have.
that come
Yeah.
back.
Yeah, we'll have a meeting
But I'm
after
saying
January
that-
1 and have the financial, how much we have been generating from that account.
I think if the people in the town meeting understand what the numbers are involved, they might be able to.
I think we have an opportunity to look at, and I would suggest that our orator is the person at town meeting, only because I would get upset. I think, it's going to a Jesuit school and so forth. I can't say it in Latin, but repetition is the mother of learning. And this is the case where it's not a one-shot deal. If we bring this thing, if we keep on hitting it every year, it's going to be, people are going to realize that $125,000 is a lot of money. If you do it for the 6 years or whatever the year, you're talking almost $1 million to keep it going, and you've taken in whatever, I don't know. You go back to 2 studies with recommendations, and Joe can orate on his first adventure. So I think we have to build the case, and the case is not a one-shot deal where you get 7 weeks to prepare something and come up with a position and have that voted on a position. I think when the opportunity comes at town meeting that the capital plan is accepted, that's an opportunity, I think, that somebody from the capital committee state that we are really concerned about 3 assets in the town. If that's it could be 4, could be 2, whatever it is. But I think it's a working.
I think that's certainly within your purview to get up
No.
and make that case.
Well, the other thing too is to get back to your original point about the West Harwich School. Is there a constituency supporting keeping that facility? What I mean by that is the middle school over the years has had a constituency. They voiced their opinion. They got board approval to go for the 6-year plan. The people behind the West Harwich School have got to come kind of out of the woodwork. We've got to encourage them. If there are people out there who really believe that this is an asset that the town should keep, we need to hear from them. And I would suggest, Mr. Chairman, that maybe if we can find 20 people, be nice, 6 people to come to one of our meetings next year, maybe sometime during the summer, and tell us why they believe strongly in maintaining that facility. Because otherwise, we're not going to do it on our own.
Well, I think, I couldn't agree with you more. I think I would call them stakeholders. They have, you gotta have a dog in the fight.
Right.
And,
There
we
are
talked about the meeting, the gathering.
There are 3 people that we've at least met with. Miranda Dupuy was one, Sally Urbano,
Right.
and then Duncan Berry. Those are the ones that have at least approached specifically the town within the last 2 or 3 months to indicate an interest in doing something with that site. So, I mean, certainly we could reach out, when you guys have a meeting and invite them to kind of share their vision. I had a meeting probably 4 weeks ago now at this point with Duncan Berry, and He's, people have personal lives, people have other commitments, so he's kind of weighing it out, but he seems legitimately interested in trying to accomplish something on behalf of that group. And I don't know how many neighbors are in their group overall, but it's more than 2 and less than 100.
Well, what I'd like to do is maybe get a meeting at a higher level than coming to one of our meetings, almost like wastewater, where you went to the community center. Unfortunately, there's nothing in West Harwich to, the community center is sort of generic. No matter what part of Harwich you can use it. Have something there, just as open discussion on the values or the pros and cons of the existence of that building. And we're not taking any position, it's just we're looking at assets in the town. And before we, to do the evaluation, we'd like to know what the neighborhood feels about it. I mean, it's just information gathering. It's not that we're not taking the position of funding it, we're not taking the position of not funding it, we're not taking a position of knocking it down. We just need to know, it's there. What do you think about it? Where do you want to go with it? And you get a number of different things, I'm sure. So let's put that on the spring calendar. How's that? Okay, let's go to something else. Okay, so we have a meeting. We have given the town administrator our vote. So now he takes the plan and he submits it to the Board of Selectmen and the Finance Committee?
Yeah, so it'd be a joint meeting of the Board of Selectmen, Finance Committee, and obviously Capital Outlay is welcome to
Thank you.
attend for December 10th is the night of the meeting. But what you see here is what I was planning on presenting. And I think that in terms of the administrative recommendations and the Capital Outlay Committee, I think we're pretty much in unison on all these items.
I have watched in between Monday Night Football and Channel Local 1. There's still a number of selectmen, one selectman is very concerned about the capital plan, does it exhibit debt and so forth. Are you comfortable with that discussion? Or? I mean, I've been doing this for 10 years, longer than you've been here, and this is a far better presentation. I mean, you guys have been here for teens. This is a far better comprehensive evaluation of the capital to be expended. And the issue of debt has been covered on the back, and it doesn't, excuse me, it's not part, debt is not considered on the plan within the scope of,
Bless you.
sorry. It's not considered, you have a debt graph, but in terms of our recommendations, it always has the caveat that we recommend the expense, but it's the town administrator's job to find out how he wants to pay for it. So if it is debt, that's on the, so the plan itself doesn't define the, how he's going to fund it. We fund, should it be funded? We vote, should we fund it or not? And I think everything that we've done is legitimate and proper. And I just want to know, do you feel, are you okay with that?
Yeah, I agree. I think that, I'm not exactly sure where the selectmen are going or some individual selectmen where, they're trying to, I think, mince words a little bit with capital plan versus capital budget, and are we doing it? I mean, this is the most comprehensive. I mean, we present this on an annual basis to the auditors, to the finance people from Standard & Poor's, and, no one's come back to me and said, oh, this plan's all wrong. So I don't really know what the vision is. And, quite honestly, when I asked somebody, I said, well, what is the vision of what you used to do? And they said to me, well, the vision of what we used to do is we would require people wait the 7 years. And I said, well, if people wait 7 years, then they get it funded, similar to the fire station and things like that. And they said, no, people were too afraid to put it on because they didn't want to spend any money. Because, I was curious, if the plan worked so well before, then why did we have 30 years of neglect at the harbors? And I didn't get a good answer to that. And, I think there's probably a level of frustration with this because this is a document that is a real capital document that is accomplishing. You don't have $100 million worth of assets and ignore it and expect good results. So,
Chris, the situation at the golf course is just as egregious. They had the first major thing they did was a new irrigation system about 6 years ago. But for the 5 years before that, the system didn't work. They were holding it together with duct tape, and it was disgraceful.
I think just to kind of editorialize a little bit, it's interesting to me that you put money in and you get caught up on things like the golf course. That what I have found in my experience, that once you have the initial wave of the neglect has been met, then you get to a point where now you're doing routine maintenance and you're able to extend the life. Just look at the way the roads are done in this community. It's a perfect example that we make a commitment, we fund the roads, and they're able to sustain to a level where you look at Brewster, and not to pick on a neighboring town, but their roads got to a point of being a little bit down, and then they had to go and ask $10 million to kind of bring their roads up. So you either do peaks and valleys where you ignore and then address, ignore and address, or you have a commitment to paying for capital as you go to keep up with it.
No, I think the American highway system is a prime example of that. When it was built in the 40s and the 50s or whatever time frame, we're now, or the bridges are the perfect example. Okay, the bridges are the perfect example. When there was money and people needed jobs, you go over the Bourne or the Sagamore and you read, 1933 to 1935, 1935 to 1937. Those were times when people needed work. People needed, and that's when you got it. And then what happens? Well, it works. It fine. Nobody's falling off the bridge. The lanes. So for 50 years or 60 years, literally, you have to maintain stuff. That's why we got Sean. Okay, so, it goes back to the firehouse and attached to the police department. And when you build a new police department, and the first year the elevator goes, okay? So, it's just poor planning. And I think, Pete, the former chairman, we went through a period, and you would know, we went through a period where future expenses on the capital plan were put there as placeholders. So it sort of told you there was a story. And then we got town administrators who deleted that because they were concerned about the current. Well, then it surprised other people when future became current. Had they been listed as potential future placeholders, and I think we do a better job at that. I think personally, some of the money, we should, these placeholders, and I think some of the supervisors that put their requests in understand that they could go another year. Right? Link's the perfect example. We can do it one more year and put it as a placeholder, but identify it and so forth. Even if it's a TBD, even if it's to be determined, you sort of know something's coming. But for years, you guys were here, there was zero, nothing. So you never knew what was going to happen. I think that we have to, fortunately, we're pretty good financially, but we shouldn't take advantage of that. It's sort of nice to have a piggy bank that there's some money in it. But a lot of the stuff that we're agreeing to, sometimes you gotta say no, and I don't think we do that enough. And that's the finance committee and this committee.
Chris, can I just make a comment on the debt exclusion that was shown down here? I don't care to have the information, but I think some of these people in the finance committee are gonna be asking questions on how long,
The two projects?
what projects, how long, how many years, you know, all the
Yep.
numerical things about that, which I know you have, you know.
Yeah, actually, Carol and I really haven't sat down yet to go through what the length of time is. So we will be, actually, we just talked about that today, as a matter of fact. We also try to time the market. So, you know, I think I had mentioned to the selectmen, I don't know if I had mentioned here, but, you know, getting that 0% on the borrowing has saved us $16 million. The other way we save money is, actually, I just had a meeting last night at a tech school. The tech school is borrowing to do their project. They had estimated, actually, good news on that, they had estimated that the interest cost would be 5%. It came in at 3.3. So, you know, there is some value. The other thing on the tech school is there was $12 million under budget is where the bids came in. So $12 million is excellent. However, just as a little bit of a cautionary, we have to, I think it's about 45% of it is through MSBA, the state. So they'll take their portion of that savings. That is a savings for, you know, the system. And what we're looking at, as we just had a discussion today, is how do we time out so we try to take advantage of a better interest rate market when we can. And we do try to time the debt to try to shave off what we can shave off and refinance when we can refinance.
I'm just trying to say
Yep.
there are issues that people have.
But we'll get that, we'll get those schedules.
I have a question for this committee, and we were not invited, and I just want to know, do you want to ask for an invitation? I was on, well, the finance committee, when I was on it, I automatically went, and you automatically will get your invite. In March, you're having, I saw it on the agenda, the community center meeting where all the departments come in and discuss.
It'll be a Saturday.
It'll be a Saturday, like, for
all day.
4
Actually, it'll be
hours.
over here probably.
Are you guys interested in that?
Yeah.
Not if you're smart.
No, you get free lunch.
It's a great idea, but I'll probably be out of town.
All I know is, do you want an invitation?
Yes.
Yes.
You're welcome to.
Can you send us?
We'll
an
do the posting for that.
Well, you got the you're gonna
We'll
be
just
posting.
post- Yeah, we'll post the two, so we'll just add you guys as the third too.
Yeah, just in case, we don't want any assumptions made with at least Chris not there.
I'm not gonna be sitting there taking minutes for 8 hours.
You know, it's not, it's not our meeting, we're just,
But if it's joint meeting, if you're gonna be there as a posted, so they'll be just very generic.
And the one thing, just to, I should probably make sure that the way this charter is constructed is the work on the capital plan is designed to kind of be finished by January.
Right.
And then the operating budget goes in.
right.
There's not a lot of capital items that are in the operating budget per se.
Right.
So weighing in on the capital plan is kind of front-end loaded in
Yeah.
the way it's structured.
It's just, we talk of, like, Angelo, you just talked about, you know, the finance committee should be concerned about this, you know, about their debt.
I just said there were a lot of people.
No, what I'm saying is, there's, some people there's a misunderstanding of what our responsibility is to the numbers versus what the operating budget and who's responsible. So you're joint. Yeah, we can,
If it comes up,
Is there gonna be, oh, it's too late to post, if there's gonna be a quorum of you guys on Monday?
we don't have to.
It's December 10th that
Yeah,
the,
it's a week.
Oh, it is the 10th,
yeah,
okay.
it's not the 3rd.
If there's gonna be a
it's the 10th.
quorum of the COC, it should be posted.
Should be posted, which we should,
So
you
even
should
if we
post for the
come as
10th.
individuals,
Yes.
Yeah,
so I don't know.
yeah, no, you would, so
That's
I
the way
will just, I'll
They
post
changed the
it.
rules about 5 or 6 years ago, that if you anticipate that you'll have a majority of people there,
So
and you
just
anticipate
post it.
any discussion,
Yep.
it's always safe just to post.
I'm planning to be there.
Then we don't have to be there. Pretty simple. Okay, so that's that. Old business. Any more buildings we need to discuss? No? Good. New business. Okay, so after tonight, the only thing we have is being posted for the 10th, getting an invite if we want to go and post, I think it's March 24th,
March 2nd.
March 2nd. Are there any other joint, you did the joint meeting with the Finance Committee, right? Okay, so there's really nothing else. I'm recommending that in terms of our regular scheduled meetings, we on hiatus starting tonight and going through April 1st. Is that okay with you?
Yeah, I just, if I could put in a plug, now that I got on to the Affordable Housing Trust, I'm actually the chairman of the Affordable Housing Trust, and one of the things that we will look at is town-owned assets that we could convert into housing. So we are going on the December 13th to the CPC to advocate for $340,000 to continue the work of the trust. And the expression keeps being used, the little birdies told somebody that their CPC may not be as supportive as one would hope for our efforts to continue moving in that direction. But, you know, I think the one thing I hopefully have proven in the time that I've been here is, you know, if I take something on, I want to produce results. So we will produce results, but you know, they've had projects that sat out there for 5 years and it didn't rake people over the coals the way I feel like I get raked over the coals sometimes. And they said that, you know, it would take 2 years to form the trust. It was done in 90 days. It took 2 months for the positions to be filled, and once we had it filled, we had a meeting within 2 weeks. So we're making pretty good progress. We will have a list of probably somewhere between 5 and 7 properties that we will contemplate presenting to town meeting for putting affordable units on. We will also show affordable is not a dirty word, and we will show what the housing would look like that is currently affordable in other places on the Cape and in Massachusetts that is pretty stylish. And so we'll start to make that. But that case isn't going to be made with just one voice. And as you alluded to earlier, Mr. Chairman, you have a pretty good orator right there. So as much help as we can get, because I think it's an important issue.
Yeah, they won't be voting until January.
Until January.
And I'm just trying to, in the event that they do not support something that you have supported, are you going to want to meet after their vote in case there is a change to the funding mechanism?
I think they're planning on voting in January.
January.
Final decisions, I
Yeah.
think. Carol goes to those meetings too.
Chris, are you suggesting we go to the meeting where you're gonna make the presentation?
Yeah, if people
What is the
are
date?
available, December
December 13th.
December 13th. 2 weeks from,
Time.
today's Thursday, 2
6.
weeks from,
Is there,
4 o'clock?
6.
Oh,
They start at 6, and this is first on their agenda for presentations.
December 13th at 6.
okay, I'll try to make it. I may have something.
Here.
They're over in the Dawn B. Griffin.
Let me ask something. I mean, for us to be supportive, we need to know, at least I need to know, exactly what the issue is. And, you know, whatever your meeting notes or whatever your position is going to be.
Well, sometimes it's governed by ambush, so I'll find out when I get there. But you guys
Welcome
have,
to the real world.
I know, you guys have voted to support already the 340,000. So that will be the topic of discussion that night.
And that is for the person and
And money to go into the trust.
okay.
And we have
it's
secured
not-
the services of a consultant that's on for Monday night.
Okay, so
No,
you're asking for 340,
340.
and it's for the trust to be established.
No, trust is
Uh,
established.
Okay.
The trust is established
Fund
to
is-
to fund projects that are within the
But you're not
confines of
talking
affordable
projects per
housing.
se already.
No.
No, we just have, this is seed money for us. If somebody comes up tomorrow and says, I have a deal for you to do
Okay.
affordable housing, we have
I know,
the
I
ability to address it.
Okay. So that's CPC,
December 13th at
Mhm.
6 o'clock.
Here.
And these minutes will
Yes.
probably go out to you tomorrow, so you'll have them quick.
Yeah, great. Okey dokey.
Well, I got all the dates in there.
Okay, so we got the CPC, and that's the 340, what page is the 340?
Page
Two?
3, under town planner. for the planning. Page 2, right on the bottom.
Planning, okay. Yep.
So you guys have voted, I think unanimously, to support that, so.
So that's going before CPC and also Amy's,
Yes, Amy's revetment.
She already went
no,
to CPC for her presentation.
Oh, she did?
Yeah, she went back in
okay.
November.
they're having her back, and we just had to sign that I just had to sign a piece of paper
Mhm.
saying that we voted
Oh, okay.
in favor,
Oh, yeah, yeah.
just, and then I had to go get it notarized, that it was really my signature. And then I had to get my driver's license, my AT&T ID.
Well, you guys have the approved minutes with your vote on it, so
What else do you need?
if you want to bring those at the meeting.
Okay. So the next meeting is to be determined, but we're looking at the beginning of April. Is that good enough for you guys?
Yes.
Mhm.
April?
Do you want to plan it for the first Thursday in April?
Can you make Thursdays?
Or whatever date? I don't know what,
I know, we
I
kind
don't
of
wanna put
bounced
you
around a
out.
little bit, so we had been Tuesdays and then now we're
I'm
Thursdays.
free
but
now. I got
Tuesday
Monday
or
through Tuesday.
Thursday?
No more commuting.
No more
Finance
Mohegan
committee.
Sun?
No, my marriage
oh,
is saved.
FinCom meets on Thursday.
Yeah,
What's the first Tuesday in,
We've been, what's the difference? They meet at 6.
sometimes you want to get a bite to eat.
You get home.
We usually meet at 4, right?
We meet at 4.
We meet
Keep
at
it Thursdays. We had to do Tuesdays because of him.
You tell me what date.
Thursdays.
Tuesday, I'm with
What's the
you.
first Thursday? in
Well,
What do you
I'm
like
looking-
better, month,
4th,
Tuesday or
April
Thursday?
4th,
April
first
4th.
first Thursday.
Tuesdays are fine.
April
And
2nd.
that's April 2nd.
Oh, not the 2nd.
We won't meet on April Fool's Day.
Or there'd be more
4 to,
Selectmen are meeting that night.
now, if anything
I will
comes,
say,
I know, that's
unless
televised.
the need arises.
Pay
I
for
said-
that
and we
later.
need an ad hoc meeting
Unless the need arises.
of ad hoc.
So April 2nd.
Do I hear a motion?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor? Aye, aye,
Aye.
aye, aye, aye.
Okay, stand up.